Hi, if y'all been watching, I'm reading from these books, and the front of this book is what story we just read in the past story. Now we're in part 2, story 3, Training a Prince. That's what this one's called. And so far it's been kind of interesting, but these are most stories that everybody pretty much knows. And we're doing this this one that became a movie, became a lot of stuff. But let's get back to me reading. Part 2, Story 3, Training a Prince. As Jacobed over what thought over what had happened down there by the river, it slowly dawned on her that though she had her baby back, safe and sound, he didn't really belong to her anymore. This boy, with the new name, had a new mother. Someday the princess would send for him and take him away, and never give him back again. He would grow up to be not her child, not one of the Hebrew children, but a prince of Egypt. Now, how long shall I be able to keep him? I must have she must have asked herself over and over again. 1 year, 2 year, 10 years? She couldn't tell. She could not tell. But she made up her mind that during this time she was allowed to keep him, whether how long or short, that she would give him the best training possible. Knowing that in the palace he would meet many evil temptations, she sought to anchor his little heart to God. She taught him to pray, to sing little songs of praise. Over and over again she told him the story of creation and the fall, and of God's plan of salvation. That sweet, beautiful story that had been handed down from father to son for the day from the days of Adam and Eve. She taught him God, she taught him, is a holy God who respects all his children to be good and pure and true. Those who want his blessing must follow his teaching and obey his laws. She told him also about the history of his people and how Abraham had promised that someday they would all be delivered from bondage and taken back to Canaan. Then, too, she told him of his own wonderful deliverance from death, and of her conviction that if he kept loyal and true to God, a great destiny lay ahead of him. So quickly the years went by. Then one day, when Moses was 12 years old, the fateful message arrived. The princess wanted her son, and he was to be brought to the palace at once. What a sad day that was. Mother choked back her sobs as she packed up the few things he would need to take along with him. Father trying hard to hide his grief, Miriam weeping her heart out, Aaron looking glum, not sure whether to be sad or envious. Perhaps some soldiers came in a chariot to fetch him. I don't know. Perhaps just Jacob and Moses walked to the palace together. Somehow I see somehow I seem to see them there outside the palace gate, just before they swung open, and the boy's heart full of questioning, the mother full of tears and sadness. Then came the last goodbyes, the last promise to remember, and the last assurance of undying love. As the guards took Moses inside and the gates closed behind them, the great palace must have very seemed a very lonely place to him. No doubt his new mother tried so especially kind to him, tried to be especially kind to him, but somehow it wasn't the same. Perhaps he cried himself to sleep that night, thinking that he was forever separated from his home and his dear ones, and could never return to them. But with the morning came new interest. Everywhere he turned, there was wonderful things to see. Life here was so different from all from all he knew in the humble little cottage that had been his home until now. Being a lad of fine appearance, exceedingly fair, in other words, he was really good looking, as the Bible tells us, he was soon favored in the court. Everybody loved him. The best teachers in the land were brought in to tutor him. He had lessons in mathematics, law, medicine, military science, and many other things until, as the time went by, he became learned in all the wisdom of Egyptians and was mighty in words and deeds. Not long a boy, no longer a boy, Moses was now in the prime of his life. Strong of body and keen of mind, he already had the makings of a great leader. He could ride a horse or drive a chariot with skill and daring. So well had he applied himself to his studies that there was little about the history, geography, and religion of Egypt that he did not know. So he was a very, very smart little kid. And this is him being taught by Jacob. And then this is him in the Egyptian court, learning. And then and then go back to the story. All the court, indeed, all Egypt, knew that here was a young man of unusual gifts, well able to take the Pharaoh's place. And Moses himself was not unaware that he was in direct line to the throne. Someday, he knew, if he so desired, he could become the ruler of Egypt. Yet, amid all his studies and all his busy life, he never forgot the things his mother had told him in his boyhood. Not a day passed, but he thought, not a day passed, But he thought of God and of what his mother had said God wanted him to be and to do. As the years slipped by, he fell more and more out of place in the palace. Deep loyalties, which court life could not change, drew him toward his people, now suffering greater hardship than ever. Reports of a reports of the terrible ways the Hebrew slaves were being treated reached him from time to time. Sometimes he would sometimes he would wonder whether he would go to their aid. He counted the cost of revealing that he was not an Egyptian after all, but belonging to the very people whom the Egyptians despised. He knew he would lose his position and his chance for the throne. What could he do? When he said when he said his prayers, he talked with God about all, asking him for guidance. Then one night he made his decision, choosing rather to suffer affliction with the people of God than to enjoy the pleasures of sin for a season, esteeming the reproach of Christ greater riches than the treasure in Egypt. That's King James. And that, okay. It was a great and noble choice to make, and proved to be a turning point in the history of Israel and of the world. So he made a choice of what he did. And this is a picture of him, of Moses dressed up. And if I know my stuff right, or what I know, he was 40 when he decided. Or he was always deciding. It's just that it took him to be 40 to do what he did. Alright, that's the end of part 2, chapter 3. And we're going to go to the next one in a bit.